This Week with Bob Mueller on News 2.
This week, Covenant parents and others opposed to arming teachers are removed from the Senate gallery.
It's going to be really high risk to students. It's going to be detrimental to their safety.
States that arm teachers point to unintended consequences. More in our This Week cover story.
I think it'd be a mistake for them to vote to join a union.
The governor voices his opinion of the UAW vote at the Chattanooga VW plant.
You can't marry first cousins. We're not going to allow that in this day and age.
There's an additional risk, but it's not as significant as some might otherwise be led to believe.
And a Republican state lawmaker defends cousins marrying. Hello again and welcome to another edition of This Week. Opponents to legislation to arm Tennessee teachers are tossed from the Senate gallery. The governor urges VW workers to vote no against UAW representation, and a Republican Tennessee lawmaker defends, ready for this, cousins marrying. But we begin with an ethics complaint filed by Covenant parents against a Republican state senator. The legal battle over the Covenant school shooter's writings has led to an ethics complaint against a state senator. Covenant families filed a complaint against Republican Senator Todd Gardenhire. Gardenhire is one of several people who sued to get the shooter's writings released. Then he filed a bill to stop third parties like the Covenant families from intervening in a similar lawsuit. A judge ruled the families will have a say in the upcoming state case over the writings release. The complaint accuses Gardenhire of using his position as a state senator to eliminate opposing parties. The bill already passed the Senate. It's up for a vote in the House. Parents and Democrats slammed Republicans for what they say is a double standard on many new laws. State Capitol reporter Chris O'Brien explains.
Rules for thee, not for me. It's a common phrase Democrats throw around the state capitol. They're essentially saying Republicans are only putting restrictions on laws that don't benefit them. For example, yesterday, the Senate passed a bill to allow teachers to carry guns in schools, but parents can't know who does or doesn't. That move comes after also passing bills to force students to watch a video on abortion education, which many medical experts say is inaccurate, and also learn about gun safety, both without any choice for parental opt-out. Republicans defended their moves, saying bills should be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. But both Democrats and local parents slammed Republicans today, saying it's clearly a double standard.
Gina Bolso, January 30th, K-12 Subcommittee. Parents have the right to raise their kids with values that they want to raise them with. William Lamberth, March 5th, Civil Justice Subcommittee. A parent should be intricately involved with their child's medical decisions and care.
In some cases, there's not, and it's really up to the individual type of legislation that we're passing.
Now, that bill to allow teachers to carry guns has passed the Senate. It still needs to pass the House. It's currently being what's called held on the desk, which means at any point, Republicans can suspend the rules and pull it up and take it for a vote. In Nashville, Chris O'Brien, News 2.
President Biden says his administration is inching closer to finalizing a plan to provide student debt relief to millions of Americans. Washington correspondent Raquel Martin explains how quickly this could roll out.
President Biden says millions of Americans will see the amount of interest they owe reduced as early as this fall. We're told as many as 5 million Americans will see their debt completely erased as a result.
President Biden unveiled his new student loan forgiveness plan.
Today, too many Americans, especially young people, are saddled with unsustainable debts.
His latest plan comes after the Supreme Court struck down his 2022 push to erase student debt for more than 40 million Americans.
That didn't stop us. Continue to find alternatives passed to reduce student debt payments.
The new plan targets up to 30 million Americans. In part, it would cancel up to $20,000 in runaway interest for borrowers who now owe more than they did at the start of repayment. It would also wipe out the entirety of interest for borrowers enrolled in the SAVE plan and make less than $120,000 a year. And it cancels debt for borrowers experiencing financial hardships, such as high medical bills or child care.
Give everybody a fair shot, just a shot. freedom to chase their dreams.
The president made the announcement in the swing state of Wisconsin, and Republicans there are slamming the move.
He's trying to buy votes.
Expecting our hardworking blue-collar men and women who decided to go to trade school to pay off the bill of people that have decided to get a four-year degree.
Adam Kissel with the Conservative Heritage Foundation says he expects another legal battle at the Supreme Court.
We could see a dozen AGs representing a dozen states once again sue the Biden administration over this unlawful action.
The rule filed by the Department of Education is not yet finalized. Before anyone sees relief, it will have to undergo public comment in the next coming months. For now, in Washington, Raquel Martin, back to you.
The EPA says it will protect about 100 million people from serious illness. Washington correspondent Rashad Hudson explains.
The water coming out of your tap could soon become a lot safer.
We want to make sure that all Americans are protected from their drinking water.
The Environmental Protection Agency announced the first ever national standard to limit toxic chemicals known as PFAS in public drinking systems.
We are going to reduce the exposure of PFAS.
PFAS has been linked to cancer, liver, and heart disease and development issues for infants and children. Mei Wu with the EPA says the new rule requires public drinking systems to monitor, reduce, and report high levels of the chemicals.
Nobody in America needs to worry about and should have to worry about whether or not when they turn on the tap, they can use it to make their coffee.
The EPA says it will provide nearly $1 billion in funding to help states and territories meet the new standards. Michigan Democratic Congressman Dan Kildee applauds the Biden administration for taking the step.
This standard acknowledges what we've known for years, that PFAS poses a grave threat to health.
Melanie Benish with the Environmental Working Group says this is a win for clean water advocates.
There could not be more important chemicals for the EPA to be tackling in drinking water.
But in a statement, West Virginia Republican Senator Shelley Marcapito said, while everyone wants clean drinking water, the new rule will likely result in higher costs for ratepayers. Reporting in Washington, Rashad Hudson.
A Republican state lawmaker opposed a bill that would outlaw cousins marrying, saying his grandparents were first cousins. State Capitol reporter Chris O'Brien with details.
Yes, it's currently legal for two first cousins to marry in Tennessee. But soon that will likely change.
First cousins in the state of Tennessee, you can't marry first cousins. We're not going to allow that in this day and age.
Thursday, the General Assembly passed a bill banning marriage between lineal descendants of a grandparent. Currently, the law only outlaws marriage between just the children of a grandparent. The bill passed unanimously in the Senate and drew support from most Republicans in the House, but not all of them.
There's an additional risk, but it's not as significant as some might otherwise be led to believe.
Brentwood Republican Representative Gino Bolso filed an amendment to protect cousin marriage if couples see a genetic counselor.
Obviously, the way he did it, we didn't agree with, and so his amendment failed and should have.
Bolso argued a ban on first cousin marriages would violate the Supreme Court case Obergefell v. Hodges, which legalized gay marriage.
Obergefell was a grievously wrong decision. Is there a public health issue with a male marrying a male first cousin? Obviously, I think the answer is no.
I think he was misinterpreting the Obergefell decision to try to keep first cousin marriage legal in the state of Tennessee, which is an interesting position to take.
It's a bit of an about-face from Bolso, who last week said he planned to support the bill despite the history of his own grandparents.
And they were first cousins, but they couldn't get married in Ohio. So back in 1924, they actually came down to Tennessee to get married.
House Republican leadership say Bolso was just trying to show the irony between the bill and the Obergefell ruling, since the bill would also outlaw LGBTQ marriages between first cousins.
The hypocrisy is kind of ironic on that, to have a Democrat filing a bill saying they're limiting who can get married when they've been pretty clear that they're fine with certain liberals, with polygamy, and with whomever marrying whoever.
In Nashville, Chris O'Brien.
Now to our This Week cover story. Legislation to arm Tennessee teachers is moving forward. 16 states already have such laws, but have they made students safer? News 2's Adam Mincer reports.
Can a teacher armed with a handgun make students safer? Tennessee Senate Republicans say yes, especially in schools without school resource officers.
There are some counties where they may only have 2 deputies on shift. It might take 20 or 30 minutes to get to that school. What havoc can be wreaked in that 30-minute period?
But opponents of this legislation disagree.
There have been examples where people have, where there have been unintentional incidents where school resource officers or teachers who have accidentally discharged their firearms in schools.
The Associated Press reports that between 2014 and 2018, there were more than 30 reported firearm mishaps in schools, all involving firearms brought by educators or law enforcement. Those include guns going off by mistake and students finding unattended firearms around campus.
It's going to be really high risk to students. It's going to be detrimental to their safety.
Everytown for Gun Safety says this bill has less stringent requirements than most similar laws in other states. If passed into law, educators who want to carry into a school will need to take 40 hours of school policing training and have a concealed carry permit.
States that allow teachers to be armed require hundreds or 100 and something hours of training, and this would be significantly less than that.
Yet Republicans have argued that if a potential attacker knows a teacher could be armed, not only is that extra protection for students, but a deterrent. In Nashville, Adam Mincer, News 2.